Welcome to Planetary Calendars, Astro Portraits. I'm Ralph Dimitrios, one of the astrologers. The portrait this week is Ruth Bader Ginsberg. Now, we introduce our portraits each Tuesday, and then we do our forecast for the coming week each Friday. You can find those at Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube, and you can also find the links at planetarycalendar.com, where you can find the calendars. When you go to the YouTube channel, please subscribe and click that little button to be reminded, the little red button to be reminded when they come up. They're very educational, and of course the forecasts we think are very helpful. Now, I'd wanted to do a portrait of Ruth before, our RBG as she's known, but I didn't have a good time. I didn't have a birth time, and it's hard to do a portrait without a birth time, but you can do them, you can rectify the chart. But then another astrologer, posted a chart of hers with a time. She's born March 15th, 1933, a Wednesday, at 6 a.m., so really at dawn, at Brooklyn Heights, New York. Now, I'm hoping the time is right, and when I look at the chart, it seems to be. It really does seem to be, and I'll explain why I think so. But the chart shows her having the sun at 24 degrees Pisces, the rising at 18 degrees Pisces. Venus also conjunct the rising at 14 degrees Pisces, and the largest of the asteroid Ceres at 10 degrees Pisces, and the North Node at 7 degrees Pisces. So this lineup 7, 10, 14, 18, and 24, all in Pisces, the sign of the believer. Now it's interesting, the federal government was also started in Pisces. George Washington was a Pisces. It's important to have people who believe in the system. And Ruth Bader Ginsberg was a believer. Now realize she went to law school at a time when there were very few women lawyers. And when she came out from law school, it was very hard for her to find a job in the law firm. No one would hire her. She was a married woman. They would not hire a married woman in New York City. She went on to become a professor of law at Rutgers, and a very influential professor. Where would we see that? We'd see that in the 9th house, the areas of professors. And what is up in the 9th house in her chart? The moon. The moon in Scorpio. Now the moon in Scorpio is known as the fall position. I like to call it the confidant position. It's the position that knows how to keep secrets, which of course you want in your attorney. You want them to keep your secrets. The moon in Scorpio is a sign of feminine power in the 9th house of higher education. It's conjunct Juno, the marriage asteroid. So this depicts a powerful, married female advocate. Ooh, that kind of describes Ruth Bader Ginsberg, doesn't it? Now, what's interesting is the 7th house in her chart. Okay? In the 7th house relates to law, the courts. We have the vertex, which is a fate point, Jupiter, right, in Virgo, the guy in the big plaid suit, the biggest of the planets, in Virgo, the sign of service, the sign of femininity, Neptune, the sign of imagination and of belief, the South Node, where we come from, and Mars. So Mars, Neptune, Jupiter, plus the South Node and the vertex, all in Virgo, the sign of the woman in the house related to the courts. Whoa. It's also the sign of partnership. And that's really interesting because she was married to a prominent attorney. And as she went through things, I think the first time she was at the Supreme Court, her co-counsel was her husband. And it was there that she really began to shine. But she arrived there confident because she was with her partner, Jupiter, Neptune, Mars in Virgo in the 7th house. Now, it's interesting, it's Virgo. Virgo oftentimes relates to health issues. When they were in college together, when they were in law school together, he became very ill. She actually attended his classes for him, took notes so he could do his classwork at home. That's a big commitment to relationship. Big commitment, besides how brilliant this woman had to be in order to do that, right? I mean, this is a brilliant, brilliant person. What else is going on in the chart? This is interesting. We have all this believer in the first house, right? We have all this partnership in the seventh house. In the second house, in terms of her resources, she has Mercury and Uranus. Now, Mercury is communications. Uranus is sizzle. It's brilliance. Both in Aries, right? Aries, Mercury and Aries, it's hard to get them to shut up. You know, when they really feel strongly about something, they don't want to shut up. What's interesting is Mercury is retrograde. Now, everyone thinks of Mercury retrograde as a difficult position because when Mercury goes retrograde, the computers act up, the phones act up, all kinds of stuff act up, right? When I'm recording this, in fact, Mercury's retrograde in Libra, and right by the new moon, and all of a sudden my computer program for putting out the charts didn't work. When I printed Ruth's chart, the sun and the moon both disappeared. But finally, it seemed like it straightened itself out, and I was able to print it. That's Mercury retrograde. But Mercury retrograde, personally, means that people tend to have a very intense inner dialogue. And when it's in Aries, when she speaks up, she really speaks up. You know, she has no problem in kind of talking, truth to power in the second house, right? The concentration in this chart, it's interesting, it's really concentrated in certain houses of the first house and the seventh house, which really describes the attorney and the advocacy. Where do I stand and who do I oppose? The ninth house, higher education, and then following the 12th house. The 12th house, she has Aquarius, and she has Saturn there. Saturn in Aquarius is what you call the masculine ruler. Masculine ruler of Saturn. It's the traditional ruler. When we were first learning astrology, everyone said, Saturn rules Capricorn and Uranus also rules Aquarius. No, not so much. That was kind of a misinterpretation of the dignity system. Saturn in Aquarius is the masculine ruler, or the extrovert, dynamic rulership of Saturn. It's about taking the rules, the ambitions for the future in the most positive light. Aquarius is about brightness. It's about brilliance. Saturn in the 12th house, she really believed in the way in which systems, Saturn, could change the world for the better for everybody. Aquarius, it's the shepherd sign. That's why I said, that series at the Rising, she was a natural shepherd, and she was that for her students too. I mean, when she did some of her first important cases, she used her law students as her clerks. She was a great advocate for women, for young women. She was the example for how many young women lawyers to help them realize it was possible. She was so important as she went along in terms of making sure that women were going to be heard, and that the two sexes were going to be treated equally. And you can see it right there in their chart. This is really someone who is very comfortable seeing both sides of the question. This big concentration at the rising, this big concentration at the setting, the first house, the seventh house. She really could look at both sides of the question, which has to be necessary for a great jurist. You had to be able to see both. You have two people on two sides of an argument. Can you see both points of view as you judge which one is fair? The moon and the Juno in the ninth house, a higher view, an elevated view that is there in order to help. The Mercury and Uranus in the second house, the willingness to speak out. The Saturn in the 12th house with Pallas Athena, the belief of our governmental system, the 12th house, to be a positive change. And at the midheaven for that time is actually Sagittarius. Sagittarius is generally considered, in the 10th house, the position of the advocate, the attorney, the one who arrives to help you. I think it's a very good time, in fact, for her, and I think makes a very good picture of the Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsberg. So I hope you found that interesting. I'm glad we could finally find a time to do this chart. Come back and see us on Tuesdays when we upload these charts, and then come back and see us on Fridays when we post our forecast for the coming week. You can find those at Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube, and you can find the links also at planetarycalendar.com, where you can find the calendars, because you want to make sure you have your planetary calendar to help you plan your year and guide you through all the twists and turns as they come up. Until next time, be well.